All right, hi everybody. This is Ray and Laura over at Thinkful. We're doing another weekly think tank hangout, and this week we're doing Bootcamps 101, a crash course in coding. So today we're here with a bunch of really awesome panelists to talk about bootcamps, what they are, whether they're right for different people and their learning goals, how to be successful in them. I will introduce myself, and then we'll kick it over to the panelists that we have today. I'm Ray at Thinkful. I do education operations over here and work very closely with our mentor team.
Hi, I am Laura. I am head of community and lead firm wrangler. That's it.
And let's introduce the panelists. So, Kaylin, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
And why you're so awesome.
Why I'm so awesome? I don't know. I don't know where to start on that one. I founded a coding bootcamp here in the Intermountain West area, Utah area, called Dev Mountain. We teach web development and iOS development.
Very cool. So, Chad, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Chad. I'm the CEO of ThoughtBot, and we partnered with Kaplan to start the development bootcamp Metis in Boston and New York City.
Awesome. We love Metis. Daniel, what is your life story? What brings you here?
So I am Daniel. I'm an alumni of the Flatiron School's Ruby program, which I took this past winter and spring, and now I'm an engineer at a health tech startup.
Awesome.
Very cool. And we've got Lindy as well, whose video feed isn't live, but she's just as awesome about it.
Yes, sorry about that. I am Lindy. I am head of admissions here at CodeFellows in Seattle, and I've been doing that for about a little over a year. And I also help on the program management side and helping all of our students welcome them to the wonderful world of coding bootcamps.
School's Ruby program, which I took this past winter.
Awesome.
Very cool. And we've got Lindy as well,
Sorry about that. Admissions here at CodeFellows in Seattle, and I've been doing that for
someone have that screamer in the background?
I think that might have been it.
Are we good? Technical difficulties? Okay. Lloyd, you're up next.
Hi everyone, I'm Lloyd Nimitz, Director of Dev Bootcamp here in New York City. We launched about 4 months ago and really excited to be here. It's the third location. We were founded 2.5 years ago in San Francisco, and then about 1.5 years in Chicago, and now we're out. We move east as opposed to the American tradition. So happy to be here. Looking forward to talking.
Excellent. And Sean, you're the last to introduce yourself. Say hi.
Sure. Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. I'm Sean Dakin. I'm the founder and CEO at Refactor U. We're in Boulder, Colorado, and we've been around for about 1 year. We teach full-stack JavaScript, and we're launching other courses in data science and a bunch of online courses and good stuff like that. So welcome. Happy to be here.
Excellent. So the first topic I'd like to start with is just for people who don't know what a bootcamp is, it's a fairly new concept. It's a very immersive way of learning software development. Sean, I'm going to direct this question at you. How does somebody who's considering some different learning options know that the bootcamp approach might be right for them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it depends on the individual. I think that some people thrive in an intense learning experience and others don't. And so it kind of comes down to individual learning style. It depends on what they want to achieve, what their goals are. And obviously, there are probably practical considerations too. I mean, can they afford it? Do they have the time and the resources and the support network? Are there family considerations, spouse's job, childcare? I think every situation is probably unique. And with our students, I think there's a fair amount of self-reflection and self-discovery that goes on in the consideration process of doing something like this. I mean, obviously they have to be super passionate about this path, and they need to have the support resources and the monetary resources. But
yeah, it's pretty cool. Lloyd, do you have anything to add to that? Is there anything else that you guys consider when you're looking at students?
That we consider when we're, sorry?
Is there anything that you have to add to the kind of considerations that Sean mentioned for people who are thinking about a bootcamp as a possible option for them?
Yeah. In almost all cases, it's people who are in career transition moments. Now, they're actually about 10% of our students that are coming in out of school as sort of an alternative track, educational track. But the most common are people who are looking for a way to go into software engineering as a career move without having to go back to school and take on all the student debt. So that's the biggest sort of factor.
Yep, I agree with that.
Actually, that kind of leads us right into our next question, which I think would be perfect for you, Lindy. Kind of what is the benefit of taking this route versus going the traditional college when you're kind of talking to people as from the admissions side of things?
Yeah, definitely. We think that not only is it a great alternative for going to a traditional college, but also that it works great in conjunction with we're not able to complete their degree. We are really focused on practical job skills, while CS degrees, for example, tend to be more focused on the theoretical. Some companies spend up to 6 weeks getting their CS grads up to speed, and we take those best practices and build them into all of our programs.
Yeah, pretty cool. And Daniel, as the sole representative of somebody who's gone through from the student's perspective here, what led you to decide that a bootcamp approach was right for you?
I guess two things. The first one is that my learning style, as was said before, I have no problem teaching things myself if I know what I need to be learning. But if I'm coming into an entirely new field where there's 100 directions I could go, I get very frustrated getting stuck in the weeds. So having some people who've been there before who know the landscape say, this is the first thing you should learn, then you should go here, and this is important. But that's not going to be important for you right now. You should do that later. And then maybe if you're interested, do this, really helped. Because I could work a lot harder knowing I was learning something that was going to be worthwhile. And I struggled with that before I came to the bootcamp. So that was a big benefit. Also having peers is valuable, because if I'm on my own, I'm like, I did pretty well today. I learned how to make a route. I'm going to stop. But with peers as people who make routes way better than you and then do other things besides, and you realize that there's more that could be done. And so whereas if I was on my own, I might have been resting on my laurels a lot more. In the bootcamp, I was constantly pushing myself because I could see what was possible. So that was kind of why I liked it.
Cool. So Chad, from your perspective, you've seen a lot of applicants come through. What characteristics make for somebody who is successful once they get to bootcamp?
So one of the big things we look at, there's really two main areas that we look at. First is what we believe that someone's technical ability and ability to learn technical topics is. And that's an important aspect, and we have a series of interview and application questions that are everything from solving puzzles to just talking through complex things that have nothing to do with technology. And then in some ways more importantly, it's communication and empathy and ability to participate as a software developer in the larger software development ecosystem, and making sure that it's the right fit and all those things. So those are the two big areas that we look at to make sure that not only is someone going to do a good job, but they're truly going to be effective, do a good job technically, but effective at the whole job, and then really enjoy it as well. Because enjoying it is really important.
Yeah, awesome. So Kaylin, are there any additional things that you guys look for over at Dev Mountain when you're evaluating potential candidates, when you're trying to find who will be successful?
Yeah, I think what he said was right on. I would maybe phrase it slightly differently, maybe just kind of from our experience. We actually started with a part-time model and have since introduced the full-time model. So we've seen kind of different markets and different motivations come into play. And the two factors that keep coming to my mind when we evaluate applicants are just a general passion for learning technology. It can't be enough just to say, oh, well, technology and coding seems to be a lucrative career. Maybe that's something I should try. We want people to really want to learn this stuff beyond just because it's lucrative or profitable for them. And then, like we said, also just the just the technical ability to be able to think critically and kind of approach a problem in a logical way. Those are things that we value quite a bit. And kind of switching it just a little bit, I think the part-time, we run a lot of part-time boot camps as well, and I think with the part-time model, even though we're able to kind of condense a very a very intense educational experience into a part-time model, we still value how much time the students have to dedicate to the class. And I think that the immersive camps that we run and that everybody else here on the panel runs can take advantage of just a lot of time where they're putting students into kind of this immersive environment. And even in our part-time classes, it really comes down to how much time do they have to dedicate. If you're the kind of person that is wanting to dedicate a few hours a week to learning to code, it's going to take a really long time to gain any level of mastery. Whereas if you can dedicate a good 30, 40, or with an immersive program, 60, 80 hours a week to learning the program, you're going to get more proficient a lot faster.
Well, so Sean, I saw you nodding while Kaylin was speaking there. Is that, do you agree with what he said?
Yeah, completely. I have a lot to add. I think that in addition to what everyone else has said, we look for so we definitely look for the passion and the raw general intelligence, but we're also looking for their grit and stick-to-itiveness and whether or not they're easily frustrated or if they can push through or not. And then there's that element of emotional intelligence and interpersonal skills that we absolutely stress. We look for people that can communicate well and get along with others and work well in teams. And but yeah, I think I tend to agree with everybody that's spoken so far.
Yeah.
Are there any other ways that applicants can make themselves more attractive? I know it's extremely competitive and hard to get into some of these, some of your boot camps, and I'm sure many of our students on the line would love to know kind of how they can get their name at the top of the pile.
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, take it away.
Sure. Yeah, we see a lot of applicants that are very competitive, and so it helps to have some previous experience for Refactor U. It's not required. I know some boot camps, there's definitely a requirement. We've had people that mainly you have to show that you're dedicated to the path and that you've tried to learn on your own and that you've hit a wall. So that's really where one of the first places we look is how much have you done on your own. You don't have to be proficient in anything, but you have to really, really want it, and you have to demonstrate that in a couple of different ways. So that's what.
Cool. Lloyd, what about for DBC? Is there something that you guys look for in applicants, or something that you see sometimes that really stands out?
Yeah, I think Kaylin and Sean said a lot of it. I'll go a little deeper, which is that this was born. This bootcamp model was born sort of to enhance a track that already exists, which was the self-taught web developer track. And so it takes the model, at least from our perspective, was built to really make it easier for many people in the world who don't have the uncle developer or necessarily the ability to sort of do it all on their own. But it still requires that grit. I actually really like Sean's new word. I'm going to use that, stick-to-itiveness. That's amazing. So like you need to, for us, you need to show that passion. Like this is not just about making money. This isn't because like the new #1 job in America is the software developer job. It's this sort of core passion for problem solving and building beautiful and meaningful things. So we're looking for that, and we're looking for actual proof that people are walking down that path already.
Yeah, awesome. So, Lindy, as somebody who is evaluating people on paper, how do you see whether a candidate has these characteristics?
Yeah, that's a really great question. At Code Fellows, generally for our depth accelerators, which are longer 8-week programs, our most intense programs, we are kind of looking for an applicant that has, on average, about 2 years experience previously, whether that is doing some web development on their own or only self-study. So to kind of echo what everyone else has said, we look definitely at their past work history, their overall schooling experience, and definitely the biggest thing we look at is projects they have done on their own, and how they've used their budding skill set to build their own apps and how that relates to their passions and what they're looking to do long term.
Yeah, awesome. So let's talk a little bit about what life is like once you actually get there. So Daniel, you show up to Flatiron School, day one, what happens?
They start giving you assignments, and you don't know what's going on. And everyone's trying super hard to make a good impression and do well, because everyone in my bootcamp, and I think it's common for many people, are super driven. Like, what I'll say is that the caliber of students in a bootcamp compared to at a university, it doesn't compare. People are there for a reason, and they're very intense. So they're going nonstop.
Class, for example, let's just help kind of bring this to life for other people.
Sorry, so there were 40 people in the Ruby class, and there was a parallel iOS class that was 10. And yeah, so it's from the get-go. You start working, you start deploying. The first project we did was building like our own profile pages on the site, so we had to learn how to use Git. And then yeah, every day it's 9 to 6. You get in there. There's an assignment. There's a lecture. There's another assignment from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. Then people stay till 9 p.m. There were a few people who even slept on the couches, which I didn't do, but more power to you. They work on the weekends, and I think that's a lot of students' experience, because they kind of realize, and I recognize this as well, that this is a 3-month period to internalize a massive skill set that is bigger than you'll ever be able to master. But the more that you can master it, the better off you'll be. So, I told a lot of my friends, I'm not going to see you so much for the next few months, and I hope that you forgive me because I love you. And that's just kind of what it's about, and I think that's the way that it should be. I don't want to say how it should be, but that was how I was.
Awesome. So Chad, when you see students dive into Metis, obviously the time commitment is big, and you're doing a lot of practical work right away. What other ways do you characterize how students will be spending their time there?
So I think it's an important distinction. One of the reasons why we wanted to create Metis was because we believe that one area where a lot of boot camps got it wrong is how much time the students are spending. So, but even more so, we practice sustainable pace at Thoughtbot, and we have incredible software developers who are as productive or more productive than people who are working 70 or 80 hours a week. And we didn't want to, we were very concerned that these people who are in boot camps working 70 or 80 hours a week are just setting up to propagate what is essentially a situation where they're going to get taken advantage of at a startup where you're working 78 hours a week for deadlines that don't really matter, for very low pay and stock options, which is rampant in the industry, really, and something that I've railed against for a long time. So I was really concerned that the boot camps were setting up people to just stay on that race and never stop. So we started with the premise that having really, really good instructors with smaller classes could set up a more sustainable pace. So no one at Metis is here on the weekends. The office gets closed in the evening, so that and you can continue to work on your own, but that's not how we run it. And I think that we're really excited because the results sort of speak for themselves, that the people coming out of Metis can stand aside anyone else who's taken 80 hours a week in their boot camp. I have to be careful when I talk about this because I don't want to be too negative about the other boot camps. The results coming out of them are great as well. We thought that there was a better way, and we wanted to attack it head on. So
certainly in the startup community,
it is transition from it's a 12-week program, and the first 7 weeks are much more where you're learning in a traditional lecture exercise, building stuff together as a class format. And then you break into groups and do a group project. The groups are 3 to 4 people. And then after you take the 2 weeks building that group project, you then spend the remainder of the time working on an individual passion project where you're responsible for everything. And the flow of that is that the experienced Thoughtbot developers who are the instructors are doing pull request, code review, that kind of thing on the application that you're building. So we try to replicate that working environment as closely as possible.
Nice. Yeah, I know the hours issue is certainly one that's controversial in the startup community and something that I've participated in here at Thinkful as well. Keelan, I'd like to learn a little bit about how Dev Mountain approaches education. Like, do you use what's your approach to teaching specifically?
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be similar to a lot of the other boot camps. Well, and it really depends on the model. With the part-time classes that we do, of necessity, we have to follow sort of a flipped classroom model where the students are required to do a lot of like the, reading or, checking out blog posts that are kind of fundamental for certain concepts or whatever, having them come to class already having done those things so that the instructor doesn't have to spend a lot of time explaining or, kind of going over the basics. That instructor is there for kind of the key fundamental things that are really hard for people to just pick up on their own. And then we want to maximize the time they're in the class itself to, have their hands on the keyboards as much as possible. So we hate the word lecture. We use it all the time, but we hate the word lecture because we feel like, the more time we can get the students with their fingers on the keyboard and, less with listening to one person, then they're going to be more productive. But there's obviously a balance. There's sometimes that you need to just take some time and explain difficult concepts. With the full-time class, it's even just kind of that same model, just expanded even more. So they spend some time in the morning solving some problems kind of in a group setting, listening to one person, talking about certain things like routing or, API design or things like that. And then the rest of the day they're building, applying that knowledge and hopefully building something that they can show or have reviewed by their peers or their mentors, things like that. I think the combination of kind of a flipped classroom approach, at least especially with the part-time, but also mentored learning, I think is a big key for these students to be able to be successful. If a student gets stuck and they're stuck for any number of hours, they're going to greatly hamper their own success in the class. Those hours are precious time, and if it was something silly like an easy misconception, or somebody else can look at their code and just say, hey, you missed a comma or a semicolon or a curly brace or something. We want to help them get through those brick walls as quickly as possible. And there's even a balance there because you want to give students the opportunity to learn to debug their own code. Obviously, we're not going to solve the problems for them, but even educational research has shown that students who perform the best are often students who are working one-on-one with mentors. And so we try to make mentorship a big part of what we do because just keeping those students progressing and moving at a fast pace is critical.
Yeah.
That's great. Lloyd, I have a question for you. You mentioned that you guys have 3 locations. I'm kind of curious, what role does that play? If you're a student, you're looking into which kind of spot do I go into, what are the benefits, how does it change, and kind of how big of a factor is that when you're trying to decide what bootcamp to go to?
Thanks that's like a setup for me. I mean, I think it's important. There are a couple of things. One is alumni network and employer network is just a natural advantage to having schools in different places. We have a lot of some of our graduates in New York. We've already graduated 4 classes. Have gotten jobs on the West Coast in the Bay Area. because we have a pretty large careers team supporting the student in any location they want to go to in those 3 areas, and in other parts of the U.S. and Europe as well, but to a lesser extent. So that's a big advantage to having sort of a little more scale, is that we have a career support network in different places. The other is the alumni. Really, our alumni are our biggest support network. Our alumni are all over the place, including ThoughtBot with Chad and other places, and they are starting to get to a sizable constituency that really is sort of a force for us, not just in supporting our alumni in getting jobs, but also in supporting us as an organization in improving what we do to keep tweaking our model to be more in touch with where the market's at, which is something that I think that I have to be really good at.
Yeah, so Sean, you're in the Boulder area. Do you, and to stay on the topic of location, do most of the students that you work with look to stay in that area, or do a substantial proportion of folks end up looking in other markets for work?
Yeah, I would say we're kind of unique. So Boulder is a place where people want to go regardless. So it's kind of a destination location just because of the geography and the fun things to do, but also because we actually have more startups per capita in Boulder than any other city in the country, which kind of blew my mind when I learned that. But I mean, I've lived in the Boston area and I've lived in the Bay Area for 7 years, and I had no idea actually that that statistic was out there. So what we're seeing is that about half of our cohorts will end up staying in the Boulder, Denver metro area, and then the other half are going to other cities. So there's a fair proportion that's going to the Bay Area, a couple in LA, New York, Boston, DC, Chicago, so kind of all over. But we actually, so we facilitate that. We have a network of companies that we work with all over the place, as well as our strategic partner, Turning the Corner, which is a technical recruiter. They have a network everywhere. So we facilitate kind of whatever the student wants to do, but we, of course, benefit by having the students participate in the local economy and growing the community. So.
Yeah, awesome. So we're getting close to our half-hour point. I want to go around and ask a final question of everybody. And Daniel, I'll start with you. So what advice do you have for future bootcamp attendees and graduates?
I guess something that echoes a lot of what people have said here before, which is that you're there to acquire an entire professional skill set in a profession that is massive, and you're there to get oriented to the field, to know what's out there, to know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, to figure out what you like, learn as much as you can, so that when you leave the boot camp, you can continue to direct your career. Because the boot camp will get you started, but it will not take you all the way to the end. So if you can figure out enough to keep going after that, you'll have gotten a lot out of it, I think.
Yeah, awesome. So Lindy, what about from your perspective? Like, one thing what piece of advice would you give to future bootcamp participants?
Yeah, for a future bootcamper, I would definitely say that this is a big life decision, not only for your personal life, but also financially. It definitely takes some serious thought and research about what you are looking to do and to get from the program. And then for any graduates, we always say to continue to write code every day and to never stop learning.
That's great. Chad, is there something that you kind of like to tell people on day one that they wish they knew going in, so you can prepare them to maximize that experience?
I think that in some ways the previous one sort of covered it. I can't stress enough though that the boot camp represents just the start of what's going to be ahead of you, and so the successful people that I see, the most successful people coming out of every boot camp class, were going to do it regardless of what boot camp they went to. They were going to do it whether they went to a boot camp or not. It was just a matter of time. They're the people who never had a chance to use a computer before and program before, But when they start to do it, it's just amazing, and it was like they were meant to do it. And so it's and the trajectory that everyone is on in the bootcamp is amazing. And so know that to set sort of both inspiring, but also sort of be realistic that the bootcamp is just the start of an amazing journey.
Yeah, great. So Kaylin, I see you nodding along. Do you have anything to add or any resources that people might want to keep in mind as they're heading into this?
I think what everybody said so far has been great. The only thing I would add is, sometimes I'll see students get very frustrated or overwhelmed. I mean, you're really drinking from a fire hose for 12 weeks, and so there's kind of this critical point where you reach kind of the pinnacle of the difficulty of the class, and the concepts you're struggling to get those concepts cemented into your brain. It's a lot like learning a new language. If you ever learned a new language in kind of a condensed format, you just feel like you're never going to learn it. You feel like it's so difficult, and some of our students sometimes get down on themselves because we're pushing things at them so quickly. But what they fail to realize a lot of times is how far they're coming and how quickly they're learning. It's just difficult to see that while you're in there. So I think sometimes I feel like I play the role of cheerleader a little bit with our students and just say, you guys are doing awesome, guys and gals, obviously. You're doing great, and you're learning so much, and think where you were at week one, and I think that helps people when it's a really challenging format like this.
Awesome. So Lloyd, anything on your end that you'd say to somebody heading in, or maybe somebody who just wrapped up their time at a bootcamp?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My advice is to be a chef. And what I mean by that is don't be a customer. I think, at least for us, the bootcamp is not a place to go to get taught. For us to come and like a customer at a restaurant, where you're given a menu and you get the food served to you. The advice is you chose a bootcamp, or if it's right for you, you're choosing a bootcamp, at least like the bootcamp where you're voraciously wanting to learn, and you already are, but you can't get enough, and you just want that amazing environment. You want a little more guidance, structure to accelerate the process. And so when you come in the door to an institution like ours, that shouldn't stop. You shouldn't all of a sudden become a customer. You got to keep being a chef. So, the advice.
Awesome. So, Sean, I'll give you the last word. For somebody headed in or coming out of the boot camp, what advice do you have?
Yeah. So I have three things. So the first thing is do the pre-work. Please do the pre-work. Your life will be so much better if you do the pre-work, at least in the first few days. Take advantage of everything we have to offer, right? So with our strategic partners, we provide interview skills and resume writing and career coaching and all that stuff. It's optional, but it is also sort of integrated into our curriculum, so please take advantage of it. It's there for our students. And then the other thing is, energy levels wax and wane, right? And so really take care of yourself during the process. Get sleep. Sleep. You actually need sleep to learn. It's not my opinion, right? It's like scientific fact. So we really encourage balance, and that's what I would say is, jump in with both feet, but make sure that you don't burn out. Take time for it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you.
Words to live by. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, so thank you very much to all the panelists who joined us today. This has been a blast. I've learned a bit. So that wraps up for today, and we'll be back around next week. See you then.
See you guys then. Thank you so much. Bye.